Hey guys, welcome back to the How to Foil series with SPG. My name is James Jimbo Leigh. We've got Nathan van Vuuren with us.
Awesome. Super stoked to be back again. Excited for today. What's the plan? What are we talking about?
So the plan is to speak about prone foiling today.
That's exciting.
And if you're watching and you're an absolute beginner or you're an amateur, intermediate, wherever you are, just watch a video. You might actually learn something because we've got the pro right here with us and we're going to be asking a few questions and just gathering a few tips about prone foiling together. So stay tuned. This is going to be a good one.
It'll be exciting.
So in our previous episode, we went through briefly how to put your SPG foil together. And today we're going to be speaking about prone foiling. So Nate, just quickly for the audience, if somebody weighs, let's say 75 kgs, what board would you recommend for them?
So around the 75 kilo mark, if you're more on the beginning stages of prone surf foiling especially, we would definitely recommend a very common size used for beginner foilers is about a 5-foot board with about 40 liters. It might sometimes sound short if you're coming from a surf background, but with the foil you are able to shrink the board down quite a bit and keep a nice amount of volume. So around 5 foot with about 40, maybe 45 liters is perfect. Just for getting going, big enough board to be stable on and catch a lot of waves. So what we would generally recommend when it comes to getting into the beginning stages of surf prone foiling is just finding a board that's a little bit more literage compared to what you would usually have, just for easy paddling. What you want to do when you get into the waves, you want to have easy paddle, which means lots of waves. You want to catch as many waves as possible when learning, just so you can spend as much time practicing getting up onto foil as possible. So generally we'll go a little bit bigger depending on your weight and your size, but generally bigger is easier and better for learning.
Awesome. So Nathan, we've got our foil set up, we've got our board together, we're frothing to get in the water. First step, how do you get into the water with a foil?
So first step, you got to walk down the beach and get into the water. That's the very first step. What you're going to want to do, there's so many ways to carry your board, but the best and easiest way is as you enter the water to always keep the board next to your side with the nose pointing towards the waves and the foil on the other side. So not with the foil behind you or in front of you, rather have the board flipped over so that the deck pad is facing you and your foil is on the opposite side of the board. That way, if for some reason a wave does come and roll you, there is a very small chance that it'll come back and potentially injure you. So that is the safest way to do it, and also make sure that it is like deep enough. In our experience, like always make sure at least waist to chest deep water before you flip the foil over and start paddling, because you might end up like hitting reef or sand and actually damaging the foil.
And then for guys that are surfing around reefs and stuff like that, how would you kind of walk your board out?
So what we generally do in our experience with foiling reef breaks, especially ones you have to paddle from the beach, is to flip the board upside down. So you lie on the board upside down and you can paddle it till it's deep enough, then flip the board back over. It's quite a process, but once you get into it, it becomes second nature.
While we're paddling out, we're looking, clearly there's like a foamy section, there's a big wall, there's maybe a barrel-y section. If I'm a beginner and I'm paddling out, where should I be paddling to? Small foamies or big walls, or what should I be doing?
Yeah, so first of all, you want to get the right conditions for your surf foil experience, especially in the first couple times. You don't want it to be too big, so anything over shoulder to head height is generally a bit of a no-go, as there's just too much power when you're learning to foil. So generally waist high, as you mentioned, even foamies is amazing to start on. So look for this nice, clean, smaller days to get going. But just make sure you pick your days wisely. Not huge days to paddle out and take monster drops. It's not going to be a good experience.
How do you actually catch the wave on a prone foil?
Yeah, so it's pretty much the same as a surfboard. You got to make sure you're lying on your board, generally a little bit more forward, so you don't want to be lying off the back of the board, because what happens if you've turned towards the beach and you're paddling for a wave and you're too far back on your board, as soon as you catch the wave, it's just going to pop the foil out of the water, like at a very quick speed. So you want to make sure that you get over the front of your board. As soon as you paddle in and you feel a push, whether it's on the wall or on a foamy, you want to make sure that you have your hands a little bit closer to the front of the nose of the board. And then as you get more speed going forward, make sure you keep pressure on the front and slowly get your feet. You don't have to do a quick pop-up, because sometimes if you do a fast pop-up as the wave hits you, you can get an unstable moment. So we generally recommend taking your time, make sure that you get your feet, and then let go, and make sure that you always keep pressure on your front foot. So you have to shift your weight just over the front of the foil, because as soon as you get speed, the way it's designed is to just generate lift. So as soon as you get that moment, you'll find a nice little happy place, sort of a little bit forward, maybe neutral on the foil. So
what I've seen is when I foiled with you, is you've got a technique where you put your back foot on first and then your front foot, and it seems like you got a lot more control in your pop-up, whereas I go for like the full-on Hail Mary, and I just go for the pop-up straight to my feet, and sometimes it works and it's perfect, sometimes I'm wobbling and waving my arms everywhere and I'm just not getting on the board. So what technique would you say is best for like a beginner?
So we generally recommend, when you're starting out, to take things a little bit slower. Sometimes you are like just very excited to stand up as soon as you hit the wave. I've seen guys, as soon as the wave hits, and they just stand up and then they get popped out of the water. So we generally say, even like, take your time before you get to your feet, make sure that you're stable on the board, that you're going in the right direction. And then when it's clear and you're ready, you can start to slowly get your feet. Rather take your time with what you're doing. As you progress, you can, as you're saying, just learn to pop up a lot quicker, especially as the wave changes.
Yes.
But in the beginning, make sure you take your time, get your feet in the right position before you attempt to pop the foil out of the water and start foiling.
So, Nate, let's say I've caught this wave now, I've made it to my feet,
Made the pop-up.
I haven't died yet. What do I do to keep my balance? Because usually you get that like initial push, and somehow that seems to be quite stable, and then you get to your feet. Once I'm on my feet, what do I do?
So there is a moment in there, as you mentioned, you get that initial push. What you want to do, as I mentioned, is to make sure always to have a bit of front foot pressure, because the foil does get to a stage where it does want to pop out of the water, and that's a good thing because we want to go foiling, right?
Yeah.
So as soon as it starts to pop out of the water, make sure you constantly keep a little bit of front foot pressure. Also, depending what size foil you have, if you have a slightly larger foil, you're going to want to increase your front foot pressure. But if you're in something a little bit smaller, it might be a little bit more neutral. So it is a bit of a mindset shift if you are coming from surfing background. Just to shift from back foot to the front foot roller.
And once somebody always told me, do the bear hug, where you super wide stance and put your arms out like a big bear hug. And that seems
stability.
To help me. Get your arms out to be stable. And once you're flying now, obviously, like let's say we've survived this takeoff and we're actually going down the wave. One of the things that I've noticed is sometimes I can just outrun the wave because the foil's so fast. So to avoid that, how do I sort of turn or kind of stay with the wave once I'm going?
So when you are up and foiling, you've made the pop-up, you've made the drop, and you're going down the wave. It is possible, because foils are so efficient, it is possible if you just continue straight and it's just a foamy, you can actually outrun the wave. So what you want to do, as soon as you're up and you're ready to start adjusting the foil angle, what you want to do, generally when you're beginning, you will have as much stability as possible. You said the bear hug. As soon as you want to initiate a turn, let's say we want to go down the wave left. If you're turning to your backside, you want to make sure that you open up your chest a little bit more instead of turning with your head. So make sure you turn with your upper body, adjust lead with your outside shoulder. where you want to turn, and you'll find that the foil will follow which way you go. In the beginning, it'll almost feel like the foil doesn't want to follow you at all, but as you ride, you will find ways to fine-tune your turning. But that is the basic rule, is to lead with your shoulder in through turns, similar to snowboarding and with surfing. But yeah, with
surfing, I've always found that I go where I'm looking.
Yeah.
And so if you're foiling and there's people in front of you and you look at those people, most likely are you going to go towards it?
Yeah, so if there are, I mean, first of all, we shouldn't be foiling when you're learning around a lot of people. If possible, try to find a way that's a little bit more secluded.
Okay.
But if you are looking where you're going, you'll probably end up going that way. So you do lead with your head and with your shoulders, wherever direction that is going. So yeah, that's just the basics of turning.
Sort of that way, if you're able to turn, then maybe you're able to stay a bit more on the wave and not outrun it. Because what I've experienced, like when I've been learning, is that I'll outrun the wave, and then I wait, and then the foamy comes, and I've got 0 speed, and then next one I have like a very creepy wipeout where the foil can pop up. It just doesn't go very well. So so definitely recommend turning.
Yeah, these foils are quite efficient. So if you are on a, let's just say, it generally happens if there's a flat section and just a foam wave, then you can outrun pretty quick.
Once we're up and riding and we're flying and we're having the wave and time of our lives, obviously sometimes the stoke can be really real and you sort of don't look where you're going, but what would you say we should watch out for?
So on a foil, like when you're on a wave, you're going a lot faster than a surfboard, so you always have to remain vigilant. Make sure you know where, if there are people in the water, make sure you always know where they are. Sometimes if you're like really focused, as you said, it's hard to see where people are, and then it's a last minute moment. So always make sure you can see everyone where they are, whether it's surfers, bodyboarders, longboarders, and then also if you're foiling around the reef, make sure you stay away from the shallower areas and stay more on the deeper parts of the wave. Those are generally main things to look out for. If you hit anything, it's just a very sudden stop. So always make sure you keep an eye out for plastic in the water or seaweed. Make sure you don't hit it.
I think one of the biggest questions that can be asked is, how do I progress in my style while foiling? Because I want to progress from the big bear hug wide stance to kind of discovering my own style on the foil. So what would you say is like maybe a few tips that could help someone?
So when you're starting, as you said, you have a little bit more, you're looking for stability. So it generally means you're quite rigid, and as you progress, you'll find you become a little bit more relaxed on the foil, so you can loosen up a little bit. You can start to maybe stand up a little bit straighter, bring the back in and open up the shoulders. And then as you do that, you can sort of progress into your style. Make sure in your turns, you can actually lock in your back knee a little bit when you go for turns. Make sure your feet positioning is right. There's many small things, and everybody has their own style. So it's a little bit hard to give one explanation to help, but as you progress, you'll become a lot more comfortable and find your style as you go.
So you could say progression almost comes with being more relaxed and kind of being more on the board and dropping your shoulders and just relaxing a little bit. That's very cool. Very, very good tips. Once we've actually had our session and we've had waves, we've started progressing, becoming more relaxed on the foil, we're pretty tired usually, because like sometimes we're pumping around and sometimes we're foiling and can be around people and wild animals and things. How would you say is the safest way to get out the water? Because getting in is all good and well, and then you can have a session, but then obviously we need to get out safely for ourselves and for our foils and other people. So what would you recommend?
See, when you are wanting to get out, always look for the safest exit possible. If there is a huge shore break and there is an open spot next to it where it's nice and calm, don't choose the shore break. I've done that, it can get very wild. But generally try find the cleanest, nicest, calmest area possible. And it's the same thing as a paddle out. If you are coming in, always keep the foil on the other side of you, on the other side of the board. so you don't end up coming together with a foil.
Awesome.
And then if you are able to catch a wave, you can flip the foil upside down with the foil with the mast in front of you. You can lie on the board and always make sure to keep one of your hands on the mast to make sure that doesn't slide into you. So just to keep it there, and then you can pretty much ride a wave all the way through to the beach.
Kind of like a bodyboard.
Yeah, it's like a bodyboard going in. So that's the main thing. If you are doing that, I'll make sure you have a firm grip on your board, or what we would recommend is to keep one of your hands on the leading edge of the mast.
So hey everybody, we have been chatting through prone foiling with one of the masters, Nathan van Vuuren. Brew, it's been so good to chat to you. Thanks for all of these tips. I'm definitely going to be applying these things to my prone foiling.
Awesome.
So it's been awesome to have you with us.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun chatting about the small details that don't get touched on often. So excited for some more content. If you haven't subscribed already, make sure you do. We will have some more awesome content coming, especially on the How to Foil series. So stay tuned for more, and we'll see you guys soon.
See you soon.